Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for being a part of this interview series to commemorate the life and legacy of Metropolitan Dr. Paulos Gregorius. So let us start with our interview. Sir, I would like to begin with the first question, that is, how did you come in association or near to the greatness of His Grace Dr. Paulos Gregorius Sirmeni?
First of all, Acha, I thank you so much for the interview that you have arranged for me. And basically, I congratulate you in all your ventures and see that this by the time it reaches the 100th mark, it will be a grand affair and it will be another feather on your cap. That's what I hope for and I wish for. The question, now coming straight to the text of our interview, the question is a little what I shall say, a little uh, complex enough for me, because I don't have any that I was not having any direct association with Paulus Gregorius Ceremony. I joined Basilius College in 1972, and I had the opportunity to stay at the students' hostel of the student movement of the MTU System Student Center. And it was usually the habit, once the regular class are over in Basilius College, I used to walk down to theological seminary. And when I go there, I could find a trinity of three personalities putting their hands together, putting their heads together, walking along the veranda. One was Reverend Father M.B. George. Another was Reverend Father T.J. Joshua. Another was Reverend Father Paul Varghese. And I had very good relationship with the former, the first two, but with the Paulus Gregorius Ceremony, my sense of acquaintance was not so intimate or not so close. Anyway, I had great respect for that great man, because I have heard about him and I have seen him so many times on other occasions. But what inspired me or motivated me to come closer and closer to Paulus Gregorius was, it happened October 27th, 1975. That was the day on which our Catholicos designate Matthew Athanasius was being anointed or elevated to the post of the Catholicos at the in the premises of the old theological seminary. I attended it because I had great respect for that Catholicos designate. It was his beatitude that celebrated my marriage, and in so many ways I was connected. Then the ceremony, solemnizing ceremony was in progress. And then there was a brief spell of break, during which the sermon should be given on the post of being elevated as a Catholicos. And at that time, Paulus by the time Paul Varghese became Paulus Gregorius, because it was in 1975. He came to the stage. I still visualize how Paulus Gregorius Ceremony was using the podium and how he was adorning himself as the messenger of the Orthodox Church. And he started with with certain words from here and there. The Gospel according to St. John, chapter 10. I patiently listened to Paulus Gregorius Ceremony. He said, and he started chapter 10, verse 7. I am the door of the sheep. I am the door. Then after a few lines, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gave his life for his sheep. So from 7 to 13, he collected certain verses from here and there and put it together. And that was the best feather on the cap of the Catholicos, our newly anointed Catholicos, Basilius Marthomo Matthew's Fest. Oh, how great the talk was. It was so wonderful a talk. The whole world listened to it. Then there was not much of a social media. There was no other way in which it could be communicated. But the newspaper on the next day carried the message, carried the sermon in verbatim, and it was taken to all sorts of people. From then onwards, I did have what we may call a solid relationship with Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni. Then after that, I became the Associate Secretary of MGOSism, and we have got an organization called UTOCA at that time, and I was in charge of UTOCA, and Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni was frequently, whenever he was available, he was frequently invited to talk to the college professors. Basilius College itself, he came during my time so many occasions, and he talked to them. And the way in which he talked, his body language, his blinking of the eyes, all these are matters of great importance that attracted me towards Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni. That's all what I can say right now about my building up of my association with that great soul.
So, what are the life lessons that you received from the life of Metropolitan Dr. Paulos Magregorius?
Acha, that topic requires a bit of deep analysis because we value a person, we estimate a person according to the worth of his living. And in that way, Paulus Mar Gregorius was so much far above all other people at that time. And so therefore, life lessons as such I was not able to gather. But when I sum up what I could collect from Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni's lifestyle was only this much. Remember, there were lessons I could gather from him, because human life is a tapestry of different threads. And as far as this great soul is concerned, every thread was meaningful in the life of Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni. And how he came across challenges, how he survived the challenges, how he disseminated the word of God to all sets of people. All these are great great threads in the tapestry of his life structure. And basically, he did have a great lesson to share with us, because we know that how he was born and brought up in a small village at Tripunithara, to what kind of parents he was born to, and then what was the financial position of the family at that time. And in that way, we have got a detailed information about that. But what struck me was that something was wrong with the birth of Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni. He was born with a head above his structure, above his body shape. And so that big-sized head was a little, people felt that it is a bit of an awkwardness to see Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni's body structure and his head, because it did not match very much. And so therefore, but even then, he never grieved over it. And to him, the the obstacle was the way. That is the first major lesson he taught us. Obstacle was there. His poverty, his penury, his awkwardness of the body structure, and all that. It never battered, it never bothered him. But he went along with his missionary work or with his determination. And then, so much so that at the age of 16, out of his penury, and he was not having a very brilliant education by the time, but he joined the Roman Catholic daily Malabar Mail as a journalist. Then after 2 years, he joined the shipping and transportation company. And then after a few months, a few years, he joined the P&D department. And once he joined the P&D department, he became the national leader, the what we may call the employees leader there. And he could carry so great a massive agitation against the establishment at that time. And in that way, he could prove himself to be a successful individual, a competent individual, and one who could survive any amount of challenges in his life. And that was also another life lesson. And when it comes to the third part of it was at that time in 1947, though he was not a graduate, he was given a teaching post in Ethiopia. And Haile Selassie was very much interested in him, and he went to Ethiopia. He became a school teacher there, and how much he fell in love with this African system, the Ethiopian system, Ethiopian way of teaching, Ethiopian way of education. All this mattered greatly or impressed Haile Selassie so much. And then after the 3 or 4 years, he went to America, and from the Princeton University, he took his degree. And then from there, he managed himself coming to the top of the level. And again, on one occasion, it was after completing his studies in America, he came down to Kerala. And he came down because, and that I shall, if you ask me, give me the permission to ask, to talk further on that, I shall do it at a later occasion. And then it was all his aspirational youth. He was an aspirational youth. And of course, his penury, his poverty, or his hardships, or his hiccups, nothing mattered him. But what mattered, what impressed me most was that he gave a great life lesson. All these were his life lessons. What more he could serve was, no one gets a sudden rise, even the sun. No one gets a sudden fall, even the moon. And so he says, stabilize yourself with a positive approach. This was the life lesson. No one gets a sudden rise, even the sun. No one gets a sudden fall, even the moon. So stabilize yourself, and stabilize yourself with a positive approach. And that was the best and the most beautiful, challenging life lesson one can learn from Paulus Mar Gregorius ceremony. That inspired me in another way, and I am today what I am because of that spirit, because of that life lesson I could learn from Paulus Mar Gregorius ceremony.
From your observation about Tirumeni, how can you connect this statement to the life of Tirumeni? That is, the world was his neighbor. To him, the world was his neighbor.
Yes. If you ask me to locate a person, of course, Malangari Orthodox Church is um, rich with intelligent ambassadors, spiritually motivated ambassadors. Without sidelining any of them, I would say that Paulos Mar Gregorius Tirumeni, the world was his neighbor. He was a cosmic man. He was a cosmic man. And how he developed himself into that structure of being a cosmic man, I am not able to. It was the grace of God. It was the grace of God. And a cosmic man cannot be otherwise. And Paulus Mark Gregorius Sirmi lived up to that. While he was teaching, because he was everywhere, he was an impressive figure. Everywhere he was an impressive figure. And the people admired him, the people respected him. So much was only on account of his selfless service. And that selfless service was very much displayed in Ethiopia. And there, the language that he used to teach the students was not having a grammar of its own. And see, Ethiopia became the part of his neighborhood, or he was part of the Ethiopian lifestyle. So he fell in love with Ethiopia. He fell in love with the language of Ethiopia, and he did everything best for him to ensure that the language shall have a beauty of its own, with a grammar structure, with a grammar of its own. And so he wrote a grammar book there. Then the world was his neighbor because he had certain histrionic talents. His histrionic talent was well exemplified. On one occasion, in that particular school, which was owned and run by Haile Selassie himself, where Gregorius Ceremony taught. I remember on one occasion, a Shakespearean play, Julius Caesar, was being staged. Then he took up the role of Mark Antony. Remember how he was able to catch the attention of the audience, because he is a Keralite. He was a Tripunatara, a village man. But even then, from being a village man, he got to the height of what we may call a cosmic man, because he was appreciated by everybody all over the world. Then that cosmic quality, because if you look into the passport of Gregorius Ceremony, what we can find is that there is no country, no visa of a country is not available in his passport. So many visas, because he traveled all over the world. And on occasion, after having his service in Ethiopia, he had to go to America. And then, before he left for, before he joined for his degree in the Princeton University, I remember it was in 1979. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology organized a program, Science, Faith, and Future. And in that program, Tirumeni was specially invited to moderate the session. And that post was a big challenge for Tirumeni, because he was addressing around 1,000 eminent scientists of the world, eminent philosophers of the world, eminent theologians of the world. And then he moderated the session with apt comments, with apt explanations, with apt introductions and all that. And he was well appreciated by the assembly there. But on another occasion, the Canberra Assembly in 1991, he had to be at another moderator. And in the Canberra Assembly, it happened that so many people were talking about justice, peace, and all that. And Tirumeni stood up and particularly pointing his finger at the Australian Prime Minister, Bob Hawke. He said, My dear Prime Minister, I appreciate you, but your way of dealing with the aborigines, your way of dealing with the Adivasis, the poor people in your country is not with a Christian spirit. So you have to mend your ways. He told the Australian Prime Minister. And in ways so many, he was able to establish himself. That was what he did in WCC. And everywhere, wherever he got the opportunity, he was able to establish himself and carry the day along with him. I use that expression very well. And he was able to carry the day wherever he was. He carried the day, and the day belonged to him. And so that was what Paulus Mar Gregorius ceremony in treating the world as his neighbor.
Sir, apart from the intelligence and his worldly scholarships, in what sense you may rightly call him an orthodox?
In that way, Paulus Mar Gregorius ceremony, like any of our past forefathers, role model for us. He is a role model. And he articulated the Orthodox faith wherever he was. And he never compromised on Orthodox faith. Of course, he had to remember while he was in America, he was so liked by every set of people. And there was a black Methodist church. And the pastor of the Methodist church requested Paulus Mar Gregorius ceremony to be the assistant pastor in his parish. And on 2 occasions, Tirumeni could become the assistant pastor in a Methodist church. Remember, this was that was how the world was open before him. A seamless society was open before him, and he adjusted, but he never compromised on his Orthodox faith and Orthodox spirituality. And on one occasion, he said, before he articulated very well on Orthodox faith and spirituality, he said, the world is in a difficult situation now, because it was from the book Human Presence. The affairs of the world are largely in the hands of people who are experts at making money, waging war, and playing politics. This is how he defined the people of that society at that time. And but still, on another occasion, while he had to say goodbye to Geneva, WCC assignment, and of course, as we know, Geneva is a place of coming and departing. Nobody would stay back there. And while after his, along with his, while he was doing his assignment with the WCC there, he said, I have to go back to India. And I had to go back to India. People were surprised. Because why a great man like Paulus Mar Gregorius, with his fantastic universal knowledge, global knowledge, having given all the opportunities under the sun to flourish himself very well, why should he go back to India? People used to ask him. He said, 20 years ago, my church allowed me to be in this part of the world. And while I came to this part of the world, I stayed here, I studied here, I worked here. Now I have to go back to my homeland. See, this was the spirit of his affiliation with his homeland. He never compromised. He never said that his homeland was poor. And that was, it was well reflected on one occasion when I was also in Geneva for my higher studies. And while I was in Geneva, I also got the opportunity to attend a conference at WCC. And there was at the initial stage, there was a practice of introducing oneself there. And I stood up and I said that I come from Kerala and I belong to the Orthodox Church. Then the director stood up from his podium and said that, oh, he belongs to the Church of Paulus Mar Gregorios. So that was the way in which the world endorsed his spirituality, his Orthodox faith. And in that way, he was quite an uncommon figure, I would say. Uncommon in the sense. And wherever he went, the core values of Christian Orthodox faith was well exemplified, for which he took the lines from book of Hebrew, chapter 12, verses 21 and 22. And these two, the Hebrew, Paulus says, talks to the Hebrews. What is the quality of being being a Christian or being an Orthodox man? He says, this is a city of joy. It's a city of New Jerusalem. And it's a city where all our saints are enjoying the kingdom of God. And it is a place where we find the firstborns who are being killed, and they get their citizenship in that world. And so Malankari Orthodox Church or the Orthodox faith also stands for it. And he very deliberately told the entire community that, very deliberately told the community that there is no compromise, and nobody can underestimate the value, the spirituality, and its strength at any point of time or with any point of argument. That was how he could prove himself a very articulate Orthodox man.
Sir, in what ways can we say that Tirumeni was a source of empowerment?
Tirumeni was certainly uh, concerned about empowering the society. As a continuation of Tirumeni's faith in Orthodox Church, its spirituality, its vibrancy. Remember, empowerment was his catchword. It was out of that sense of empowering not only his church, not only his church members, but everybody else. That was his great concern. See, the theological seminary was running in a very, very poor condition at that time. Very hard to find money to accommodate 30 or 40 students there, feed them, and going on for that. Once Tirumeni, while he was in Ethiopia, it seemed, I hope I am correct, he had $200 with him, only $200. And he sent those $200 to theological seminary for its betterment. A sense of empowerment there. My seminary shall not suffer on account of the paucity of funds, he believed. My church, my institutions shall be the hallmark of greatness. Remember, it was that concern that made Tirumeni to start the most prestigious and world-acclaimed Sophia Center very near to Theological Seminary. It was blessed in 1974. Remember, that was Tirumeni's great vision of empowerment. Remember, Theological Seminary was a prestigious institution for us. The entire credibility of the Orthodox Church comes from the vibrancy of the Theological Seminary. And Tirumeni started it. And I still remember how getting my foot into the Theological Seminary and then going to Sophia Center was a blessing at that time. And Tirumeni had a beautiful vision of developing it, a dove-shaped Sophia Center with a meditation center at the right. Then behind it, there is a conference room, and international conferences were being held there. And Tirumeni was so fond of bringing newer feathers onto the cap of Malangiri Orthodox Church. And then it was equally, his sense of empowerment was wonderful. Tirumeni believed the liturgical service of the Orthodox Church is superior to anybody's. Therefore, he started what we may call through the school of liturgical music. Through the school of liturgical music, remember that was also a great contribution from Tirumeni. So he believed that with whatever he has, with whatever experience he has earned, with whatever exposures he could get, all could be invested into his church for its glory and its strength. And Tirumeni was all the time, it was not, he was not merely an institution builder, and he was human builder as well. He kindled the aspirations of the people to any, because I had the opportunity to listen to Tirumeni during the annual conference of MDOCism. Tirumeni used to come. On one occasion when he came, he asked a boy there, how will you define environment? He asked the boy there, how could you define environment? Tirumeni said, people gave so many answers, but Tirumeni said, environment is whatever that is around you except you. Environment is whatever is that around you except you. See, that is the way in which he gave the children enough food for thought and believe in the fantastic knowledge system, the treasure house of knowledge he was, and that was the way in which he could what we may call empowerment. And then one thing more. Remember, wherever Tirumeni was, his main asset was Bible study classes. Tirumeni was not asked to engage a class of 30 minutes or 45 minutes, but Bible study. And that was the same case in WCC. That was the same case in all American universities. And he was given particularly 2 chapters came very handy for Paulus Mar Grigorius ceremony. I had the opportunity to listen to that. One was Philippians 2, 1 to 18, where he said, do everything without grumbling and arguing. See, he was able to tell the people, do something without grumbling and arguing. And in the 1 John epistle, he said, it deals with the love and fellowship with God. And he took 20, 30 minutes to explain it away to the students. And all those who listened, got the opportunity to listen to him, came out with a sense of being enriched and with a sense of what we may call that empowerment. That was what Tirumeni did for the church and the society.
Sir, in the cosmic vision of Metropolitan Dr. Paulos Mar Grigoris Tirumeni, in his cosmic vision, was there a place for, we all know that there was a great place for literature and and the literary richness, but how much was that greatness from your observation?
I would say that it was rather very difficult to follow the English language used by Tirumeni. And most of it was conveyed not through words, but through his body language and with his characteristic blinking of the eyes. See, at times, Tirumani used to blink his eyes, conveying a more graceful meaning to what he said. Tirumani had written around 47 books. And all these 47 books are written in English. And even though I am a teacher in English, I have got my own degrees in English. Even now, I feel I am very poor in understanding the English language of Paulus Margregorius Tirumani. I don't know from where he got it. It was purely inspiration. It was purely God's grace. And to give you, to share an example, Tirumani was staying in the Sruti Hall. That was in 1985 something, date like that. I visited Tirumani during one afternoon. Tirumani was on his easy chair writing something. As soon as he saw me, and I told Tirumani, I have got a request. What is a request? That was the time when Basilius College started PG classes in English literature. I was asked, I am given the assignment to teach literary criticism to students. In that literary criticism paper, it was ordinary literary criticism. It was the modern approach to literary criticism, bringing in so many thinkers of the world together. They talked about modernism. They talked about postmodernism. They talked about deconstruction. I was asked to teach my students modernism, postmodernism, and deconstruction. It was Greek and Latin to me, to be frank. I thought, to whom shall I go to have a better knowledge about this? That was why I went to Paulus Margregorius Tirumani. I requested Tirumani. Myself and my students are very poor in understanding modern literary criticism with its terminologies like modernism, postmodernism, and deconstruction. Tirumani, can you engage us at this for an hour, telling us what it is? I will be very much happy. My students will be very much happy. Tirumani said, yes, sir, I shall do it. You bring your students. So I sought the permission of the Tirumani whether he was available on the next day or not. Tirumani said he was available. And on the next day, after the lunch break, arranged arranged one. And in that one, around 20 students, that was our strength at that time, 20 students, I took to Paulus Margregorius Tirumani. That was the time his, what we may call arrest-taking time it may be. But Tirumani was very, 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 very broad enough to accommodate us. He arranged tables, chairs for us, and he presided over the class. Tirumani is so meticulously defined modernism, defined postmodernism, and above all, he was taking us to a new world of literature and its criticism. And he explained away the so-called terminology like deconstruction of Derrida. And he opened his book of Derrida's knowledge without any reference, offhand, extempore. And he did it. And he said, sir, Deconstruction is dismantling the word. That was the first time I heard the word like dismantling. And it is like dismantling the word. The word has no significance. It is changing its meaning. And you go and refer to Derrida, his essays, and you find there a word like difference, D-I-F-F-E-R-A-N-C-E. Oh, I could understand only difference, but not the word difference. My students were so much enthralled and mesmerized. And similar classes Tirumeni engaged for 2 days. And all my students were happy. And I was doubly happy. Because from the next day onwards, I could go to my classes with a brave hand. I know what I shall know. I should know. And that was the literary pursuit of this great man. He never stooped his head before anybody, either in English, because language was at his command. German language was at his command, Sanskrit was at his command, French language was at his command, Italian language was at his command, and under the sun, almost all the languages were under his command. And he could handle it, and he could carry the day with him, with his beauty of the language. And that was what Tirumeni could do for people like us and for the entire posterity. That was what Tirumeni's literary pursuit.
Sir, in your observation, how much was Tirumeni's thoughts uh, leaning to the Marxist ideology?
Acham, Marxist ideology, it so happened that Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni, along with the Chaldean bishop Paulus Mar Paulus, these were the two tallest figures at that time. Paulus Mar Paulus and Paulus Mar Gregorius. And both of them were the darlings of the Marxist people. That's a fact. Darlings of the Marxist people. And how Tirumeni could lean towards the Marxist ideology or the Marxist practice was that he believed the concept of social justice and reconciliation is running parallel to the gospel teachings of Jesus Christ, the New Testament. There is no conflict between the two. And without having a conflict there, the Marxist ideologists, M.P. Gonar, and similar people, they all admired and came to Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni. And on account of that, some people called him Red Bishop. Red Bishop. Because his ideology was such. But he never he never attended their meeting. If any invitation came, he must have attended, that's all. But otherwise, he was an Orthodox bishop. And he never swayed from there. But the ideological presentation was such that it leaned towards the Marxian thoughts. That was a great idea. And his research was also similar to that. God, Word, and Man. And in Gregory Nyssa. In that way, he also developed a new social system, welfareism, a social commonwealth. And that was meant for India alone. That was not meant for Kerala alone. It was meant for all the world. That's why he raised his voice against the Australian Prime Minister Bob Hawke, telling at his face, "You are bad. You are ill-treating the people." And such ill treatments could not be there. And so therefore, he was appreciated by the Marxian thoughts and Marxian people. And because he always told, wherever he could get an opportunity to be in the company of a Marxian ideologist, he used to refer to Romans 14:17. There it is said, for the kingdom of God is not food and drink, but a righteousness and peace and joy in the Holy Spirit. He gave this message. The kingdom of God is not food and drink. It is something more than that. It is righteousness, it is peace, and the joy in the Holy Spirit. So in that way, though he was knowingly or unknowingly the darling of the Marxian ideologies, he stood unique. He stood unique, and he had his own Bible with him. And based on the Bible, he taught whatever he could gather from the Marxian ideology, he accepted it because he believed that it is running on the same wavelength. It is running on the same wavelength. And in that way, he was good to everybody, not only to the socialists, not only to the Marxists, not only to any other set of people. He was a darling to all sets of people, I would say, not a red bishop, but an Orthodox bishop.
Sir, in what ways do you believe that the church can continue to sustain the legacy of Metropolitan Dr. Paulos Magrigoris Sirmeni?
It's a very challenging question. Very challenging question. Grigoris Sirmeni has given us a great legacy. And that legacy is different enough. But it is for the church to ensure that the message of Paulus Mar Gregorius Sirmeni or his knowledge or his wisdom shall be brought down to the newer generation. Because we have to define what really is meant by a legacy. And that legacy means your words and actions are the building blocks of your legacy. Your words and your actions are the building blocks of your legacy. Sirmeni was true to that. His words and his actions brought him or credited him with a beautiful legacy. Legacy is a measure of life of significance. It's a measure of life of significance. Naturally, Sirmeni was credited with these two aspects in so big a way that it is for the posterity, present generation, to ensure that these memories shall not fade into oblivion. It's a challenge. And I doubt very much whether church can do more what it has been doing so far. Of course, we are happy that the Mahatma Gandhi University was gracious enough to offer a new chair in the name of Paulus Mar Gregorius Sirmeni. And then K.M. Georgeson is the chairman of that chair, and it is doing some creditable work. Deliberations are there, reflections are there, and all that. But everything stops with that. And we have to have a definite game plan. And in that game plan, we have to work out. These are the top personalities of the church. And even today, our church is made known to the world, or the world recognizes us only because of personalities like Paulus Mar Gregorios or Philippos Mar Theophilos Sirmeni and all like that. And so it is a big challenge for the church to ensure that their legacy shall be sustained, but the legacy will not fade away soon. That's what I believe, and I hope the church will take over the challenge as early as possible and in the best way possible.
So, in your association with Tirumeni, can you please explain the last days of Tirumeni?
Though he was born with a big head, uh, that was at that time. And later, and coming to the closing days of his life, he was a little paralytic, and he had some problem, physical problem, and all that. But he made use of the last days in a beautiful way. I remember even then, I think his right hand was disabled. And with the left hand, he used his laptop and he he used to write down write articles or to disseminate knowledge to every set of people. That was his. I still remember Tirumeni during the last days came to Devaloka Maramana, where today's Malankara Safa office is doing its business now. Tiruveni was taken to that room, which was all modified with air conditioners and all that. It was well. And I used to go to Tiruveni and have a talk with him whenever I could get time, or whenever the Tirumeni could find time. And so in that way, I had good relationship with Tirumeni during the last days of his life. Another occasion was that Tirumeni moved from Devalogam to Sruthi school. And there was a room for him, and he remained there in that room. And everywhere, either at Devalogam Aramana room or at Sruthi school, Tirumeni was able to do remarkably well in spite of his ailments or weaknesses. And that was the spirit. That was a life lesson we are able to gather from Tirumeni. That question which Achan asked me some time back. Then Tirumeni, before the closing day, 1996, 95 it seems, Tirumeni made a visit to Delhi, his Aramana there. And then he convened a meeting of the medical doctors if I am wrong, Achan should correct me. And he convened a meeting of the medical doctors in and around Delhi, and that was a huge gathering. And Tirumeni called that meeting Holistic Health and Healing. Holistic Health and Healing. So many doctors from our community and from other communities attended the meeting. And to them, Tirumeni gave an advice. And that advice to the doctors is that if you can heal me right now. Don't heal me after I die. If you can heal me right now. Don't do it after I die. And if you can heal me right now, I will declare to the world that the medical students are so powerful. They are very energetic and enthusiastic. That was the message, last message. That's what I feel like Tirumeni was able to share with the medicos of the Delhi-based area at that time. And so every moment was Tirumeni's precious moment. Every moment. Tirumeni did not squander any of his opportunities. Tirumeni never insisted on killing his time by doing nothing, and that was not his nature. Tirumeni enjoyed it. And he came to the level of Maramana, he enjoyed it. At Sruthi School Hall, he enjoyed it very much. At Delhi, he enjoyed it very much. And then the last talk was the holistic health and healing. And he inserted that talk about Malankara mission churches. What shall be the role of the mission churches, mission societies in the Malankara church? That article appeared there, it seems. That was Tirumeni's last days.
So, my concluding question: what are your other personal observations or reminiscences about Grigory Tirumeni?
It's rather difficult to summarize Tirumeni so summarily. Because Tirumeni cannot be summarized. His vision was great. His life was great. His teachings were great. His associations were great. Everything was great. Some years back, a year or two, Tirumeni's 100th birth anniversary was being celebrated. And the Deputy Secretary of the WCC, Dr. Isabel Apavo Firi, he was the keynote speaker at that time to talk on Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni. He observed Tirumeni in 4 ways. And he said, I don't know how to explain away Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni, but let me be permitted to use 4 different words. One is his humility. His humility. That was classic. Classic. And to some people would say that he was a little arrogant, he was a little like that, or he was a little this. But that was not the case with the people who approached him with an open mind to understand the meaning. That was his humility. Then he was rooted in the Bible. See, a great theologian like Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni, he had no other way of explaining the way of the world other than with the help of the Bible. He was rooted firmly in the Bible. Wherever he spoke, Bible was his quotation. He used to take a quotation from the Bible, words from the Bible, and he used to impress upon the people. Then it was intolerance to injustice. He was highly intolerant to injustice. He never compromised on that. And then he was a great seer. He was a great prophet. Prophetic vision. And what the Deputy Secretary of the WCC, Dr. Isabel said, I also join with him. I also am happy that there is no better way of describing or summarizing Tirumeni, if that word is correct, related to Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni. Now, when he died, Malayalam Manorama took out a special supplement on Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni. Sumaraj God wrote so brilliant an article. And in that article, he said, ഒരു കൊലപർവ്വതം ഇടിഞ്ഞു വീണിരിക്കുന്നു. ഒരു കൊലപർവ്വതം ഇടിഞ്ഞു വീണിരിക്കുന്നു. Article, I keep that article with me. What all things he told us about Paulus Mar Gregorius. On another occasion, that was before Justice Krishnaiyer had to make a comment on Paulus Mar Gregorius Tirumeni. He said, he is a cultural wonder. He is a global wonder. And he used to roam about the world like a scholar gypsy. That word, scholar gypsy, is my own. Scholar gypsy. So this was how he said. So therefore, Krishnaiyer goes a step further, and Justice said, I don't call him a red bishop. I call him a pink bishop. A pink bishop in the sense that his spirituality was pink. His spirituality was pink. And then, because of his pink spirituality, I could find liberalism, and I could find humanism and socialism coming together. And they blend together so splendidly, that every individual will be taken to the superior light. This was how he concluded the meaning. Remember, these are all the words of eminent personalities. We may have got better way in which to describe the meaning, but to me, these are the way in which I would be able to conclude Tirumeni. I could bow my head before the memory of Tirumeni, and I still remember, I still endorse, I still appreciate, I still adore the mighty figure, that is spiritual figure, that is Paulus Mar Gregorius. Let me summarize Tirumeni in that way. That's all what I can.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable insights and your experiences that you have in with your long association with Metropolitan Dr. Paulos Mark Gregorius. Thank you so much for your valuable time and your
Thank
sharings. Thank you, sir.